Okay, today we're going to talk about simplifying square roots. So here's kind of a starter point right here. If I gave you a problem that looks something like this right here and asked you, what is 3 squared? Well, everybody can tell me that 3 squared just means this. 3 times 3, which is 9. When we're talking about square roots, we're going to work things in the other direction. In other words, I'm going to say this. Here's the number 16. What's the square root of that? What you're looking for then is what number times itself, which would be 4 times 4, is equal to 16. So that's what we have, working things in both directions. So again, when I say to square something, I need to multiply that number times itself. When I'm asking to find the square root, I've got to find the number that when I multiply it by itself, I end up with the end result, okay? So here's the first problem that we have. If I start out with a problem that looks like this right here, and I ask you to find the square root of 18, does anybody know the square root of 18 off the top of their head? Probably not very many people in the world actually know that. How many decimal places there are? There's billions of them. So what we're going to find then is we're going to find a simplified version of this where our answer is still going to be perfect, but it won't be quite as unsimple as this is right here. By the way, the sign that goes above the number that we're looking for the square root of is called the radical. Okay? So the easiest way that I found to identify what is going to be the simplified version of this particular number is, I'm going to start off like this, and some of you guys have probably already seen the waterfall technique. What is the largest prime number that I can divide this by? Well, what kind of a number is this? It ends in an 8, so it's an even number. Divide it by 2. Just make it simple. So 18 divided by 2 is what? Then we have a 9. How can I break down the 9? Well, divide that by 3. And what are we left with here? A 3. Can I divide this out anymore? And the answer is no. So now I'm looking for all my prime factors right here of 18. So 2 times 3 times 3. Are any of the numbers repeated? Well, yeah, if we take a good look, not even a good look, a pretty easy look right here, we see that the number 3 is written down for us 2 times. So guess what? That number is going to come outside. So here's what we got. I've got a 3. Okay? The number 2 right here is all by itself, so it needs to stay protected. So we'll keep the 2 underneath the radical just like that. So it's got some protection again because it's by itself. Whatever numbers have a pair, they're going to go on the outside. Whatever numbers are by themselves, they're going to stay on the inside. So the answer of 3 radical 2 is actually the simplified version of the square root of 18. Let's take a look at a couple more examples. What we'll try to do here is we're going to try to get these numbers really, really big and scary and show you that there's really no reason to be afraid. The next one I'm going to take the square root of 75. So again, I say, do you know the square root of 75 off the top of your head? You better not. So we need to break that down and simplify it. Again, how are we going to go about doing that? I'm going to do the stair step or the waterfall technique. Take the number 75. What does it end with? Well, because 75 ends with a 5, divide by 5. So when we do that, when we go 75 divided by 5, we're left with 15. Now, how are we going to break down 15? Again, divide by 5. So now 15 divided by 5, what are we left with? 3. Can I break down the 3 anymore? No. 3 is a prime number. So my prime factors of the number 75 are 5 times 5 times 3. Okay, so again, what are we looking for? I'm looking for pairs. So here's a 5 and a 5. So there's a pair of numbers written right there, right? And so because of that, we can take the 5 only one time. You're not going to write it twice, just one time. So I'm going to take that 5, and it goes outside my radical. Why? Because it's got a partner. It's fine. It can hang out. The 3 here, on the other hand, is all by itself. So the 3, still looking for some protection, is what's happening. So we keep the 3 underneath the radical. So the simplified form of the square root of 75 breaks down to be 5 radical 3. All right, the last one, I'm going to start mixing in some variables. So here's what we have now. Let's do this. The square root of 72 x cubed. Now, as soon as you see a variable, it's not that big of a deal, okay? Variables are going to work out almost exactly the same way. All right? So the way that I would do it is I'm going to break it up into two different problems. I'm going to prime factor out the number 72, and I'm going to factor out x cubed. So here's what I got. Take the number 72. Why? Because there's more work involved with this guy. What can I divide 72 by? Well, right out of the gates, I would divide it by 2. Why? Because it's an even number. Start off with things that you know, man. Simple stuff. So 72 divided by 2 is 36. So we write that there. Can we break down 36? You bet. Divide it by what? 2. And we're left with 18. What can we divide 18 by? 2. And we're left with 9. What can we divide 9 by? 3. And we're left with 3. Now we need to go back through there. We need to figure out how many pairs of numbers that we have. So as I take a look here, here's a 2, and there's a 2. So there's a pair of numbers. Here's a 2, but are there any other 2s to pair it up with? And the answer is no. So this guy's going to be all by himself. So now I go to my 3s. I got a 3 and a 3. They're a pair. So really what you got going on right here is you got this. 2 times 3, okay, because I'm going to take the 1, 2 from the pair here and the 1, 3 from the pair there, and I'm going to write them. They're going to go outside the radical and come back over here and take a look now, because my number 2 is all by himself, isn't it? You betcha. So this is what's going on right here. I've got a 2 right there, okay? Now we're going to come back to that in just a minute, but let's take a look at my variable, all right? So I've got an x cubed. Essentially what's going to go on right here is we need to figure out how many even pairs can we make. So it's a lot like the prime factorization of the numbers. Just take this and go x times x times x. Now guys, the same rules apply, okay? And because of that, how many even pairs can we make? Take a look. There's one even pair. Can this guy right here be paired up with anything? No, we can't. So because of that, we're going to put the x outside the radical. And because this x is all by himself, he goes underneath the radical like that. So now we need to go about combining the whole thing. So 2 times 3 is going to be 6. Check that out. We've got an x outside the parentheses as well. Or not the parentheses, but outside of the radical. So an x is coming out there. Now underneath the radical I have a 2. And underneath the radical I have an x. So there's my breakdown with that right there. So 6x radical 2x is the prime factorization, or the simplified square root of 72x cubed. If you got any questions, raise your hand. Let's get these things taken care of, guys. Good luck on your assignment.